Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Time and Change Will Surely show. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Juck Miletti. Juck, I have no other way to start shows now. This is just, it's been so many years of doing it. Let me try something else. Hey, Juck, what's new?
What's shaking, Tony?
Not much. Just I need to eventually settle into an intro for this show. I will. I promise. We'll get it taken care of. But everybody, welcome to the Time and Change Will Surely show, where we take one Ohio State specific topic, talk about the past, the present, and the future of that topic. Today, we are talking about true freshmen, best true freshman seasons of all time. We're going to look back, going to look to the present day and see what kind of true freshman contributions the Buckeyes will get this year. And then take a peek ahead to the 2027 class and what kind of contributions the Buckeyes may get from some of their players that are committed and perhaps other players who are not yet committed in 2027. I don't know who that could be. I'm sure we'll figure it out. We will talk about that, what things might look like next year from that class. But first, I'm going to go ahead and throw a graphic up on the screen. I went and I put together my top 10 true freshman seasons of all time at Ohio State. Just nothing scientific.
You didn't have criteria here.
No, because there's no good way to do it.
Okay.
Because you're talking about defensive linemen, offensive linemen. Like, there's no stats. You got some Big Ten freshmen of the year who did not make the list and others who did. But this was just, I figured, you know what? I'm part of this show. I can just go ahead and use my opinion and go with that. But obviously the number one, I think we would all agree, is Jeremiah Smith based on what he did that year. And I'm curious, because I'll tell my story after you tell yours, but when were you all in on him being the guy as a true freshman? At what point was it? Was it before he was signed? Was it after he was signed and you started to hear stuff? Or because I'm going to call you out right now if you think if you're going to tell me I knew he was going to go for 1,400 yards or whatever when before he was ever signed, because that's insane. I mean, it ended up being correct. But when did you have this strong feeling that he was going to be something that we hadn't seen before, or did you?
So the film coming out his senior year at Chaminade made me think that for sure he's going to come in and fight for a starting job. And then I want to say like that first week of spring was like, okay, this is legitimately like maybe the number one dude. And that felt like a ridiculous take at that point. But it wasn't. It was not a ridiculous take. But yeah, the senior film at Chaminade was just like, I mean, it'll go down in history as some of the most exciting, ridiculous stuff we've ever seen.
Just so big and fast.
Yeah, it was just, it was everything, right? It was like, there's no way this guy's not going to actually compete for a starting job as a freshman. And just to say that sounded absurd. And then to be like, yeah, he's really going to start. But even then, you always had the wonder, because of this particular coaching staff has never been big on, giving the freshmen a lot. They've always been cautious with them. But you just didn't know how much they'd feed him. And then, Tony, when it really changed was the spring game when Ryan Day was like, watch this. And then he was like, but we're going to pull him out early. And it's like, okay, he's talking about him like he's the fourth year starting quarterback. Like, we got to make sure he stays healthy. And that's when, like, okay, he's going to be the dude. Like, that to me was the big tell.
It was interesting because Ryan Day, up until that very point, was very cautious on what he would say about Jeremiah Smith. And we've talked before about his reaction to Jeremiah Smith signing and getting that, but he was very cautious in what he would tell people and didn't want to, he would stop himself. And anytime a coach has to stop themselves, you're like, okay, I'm going to make a mental note of that. But then when he was finally like, watch this, you're like,
yeah,
okay, he's now allowing himself to be a little bit freer with everything he's seen, because by that point, others had seen it as well. And I can't remember if we were there for the the first spring practice, because I was getting reports. I got a text from somebody, and I couldn't remember if they told me that he was awe-inspiring or jaw-dropping. It was something like that from like the first practice, awe-inspiring. It's like, I mean, come on, what are we talking about?
Right.
And then you go and you watch it, and it's just like the place. It's you got a crowd of people in there, whether it's recruits or coaches or whatever during the spring, random spring game or spring practices, and he'll make a play, and then there's just like this silence and then explosion because you're like, what did I? And it'd just be every single practice that we were there. It got to the point where then for like the student appreciation day and then the coaching clinic practices, it reminded me of, because I knew it was going to happen, right? So it reminded me of rewatching Breaking Bad with my wife, who had never seen it, and I knew all of the good stuff coming up. I knew all of the great scenes. I knew all of the things that were going to blow her mind, and I just got to relive that experience through her. It was just like reliving the experience of watching Jeremiah Smith for the first time through all of these other people who hadn't seen him before,
Right.
getting to watch him make these plays. And
similar to Ryan Day saying, watch this. Right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And so then it was maybe those first few practices that we saw, I was like, well, I'm no longer slow playing. This guy's going to get 1,000 yards receiving this year. I was like, I'm done. I can't not be calm about this any longer, because I was trying to say, look.
I remember, Tony, you were driving me nuts, bro. You really were. Because you and Tom in particular have always been very cautious of this, not to put too much on freshmen. And I was just waiting. When are these two just finally going to admit it, man? Would you just admit it? This dude's different. Would you just say it, for crying out loud? And I remember the day you did. And I was like, there we go. Yeah. Finally. They got Gerdeman. It's officially on.
And yeah, it was a memorable year, as everybody knows, and just the best freshman season we've ever seen. I want to move to the second one on the list, and that's Andy Katzenmoyer. I don't know. Did you get to watch much of the 96?
I lived that one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I don't know, for the people who didn't, he was almost a mythical figure in 96 with what he was doing and what they were able to allow him to do. He was basically just a wrecking ball. His season as a true freshman, 85 tackles, 23 tackles for loss, 12 sacks, 4 interceptions, a touchdown, 3 forced fumbles in the Rose Bowl against Jake Plummer, the number 2 team in the nation, Arizona State Sun Devils. 8 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, an interception. It was incredibly fun to watch him that year, and it would take a special season to top that one in terms of the true freshman. And I don't think he never matched those tackle for loss numbers, but he was also doing different things over the course of the rest of his career. But that was a time to be alive.
Boy, was it ever. When you talk about, he was almost like a mythical character. So I was 2 years below him, 3 years behind in high school. So I'm playing high school football at that period, maybe like a sophomore. And he really was like 8 feet tall, 500 pounds. This guy was just, I mean, I just wanted to see him in person. I eventually did at a party on campus. It didn't go as well as I hoped, but it was like just mythical bad dude. And it was so amazing to watch this guy in the pictures that came out. Mm-hmm. Remember the picture, remember he was wearing a visor his freshman year. The picture with the visor, and you could see the one is against Missouri, and you can see Missouri in the visor. And it's just like, that might be the hardest picture in Ohio State history of a guy just standing there. I mean, it is so awesome. He had the barbed wire tattoo. I mean, we had it all.
He was, I think they were listing him in like 6'4", 6'5", like 245 pounds. Like, should have never, he was too big. Like, he was a prototype. Like, if you were to create a middle linebacker and be like, let's just make him a little bit taller, a little bit stronger, a little bit heavier. I know it's not realistic, but let's do that. He was that.
Yeah.
And he was a USA Today All-American as in high school, and then started, I think, every game as a true freshman for the Buckeyes. And we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time on all of these guys, but I do want to talk about a few of them, because like Number 3 on the list is another guy, Orlando Pace, who started every game for the Buckeyes. I think was the first offensive lineman to start game 1 for the Buckeyes. And the reason he's number 3 on this list, he was just really, really good from the outset. Maybe gave up a sack as a true freshman, depending on who you ask. He was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year, only second team All Big Ten. But anytime you could put a freshman at left tackle and just be like, well, we don't need to worry about that anymore, that's something special. And there's no stats. They eventually created stats for him, but this one was just, I had to have him somewhere, right? And I couldn't put him ahead of Smith or Katzenmoyer. I'm wondering, as you look at this list, do you agree with where he is? Should he be somewhere else? What do you think?
I've got him 4th.
Okay.
So my list, if we're going down, so I'm at JJ. I've got Mo at 2, Katzenmoyer at 3, and Orlando at 4.
That's fair enough because Maurice Clarett as a freshman was also another mythical figure. And 1,237 yards rushing in 11 games, missed 3 games, was injured, playing hurt in a couple of others. And even in the national championship game, the running wasn't there for him. He still scored twice, and he still made the biggest play of the game.
That's what puts him over the top for me in that kind of argument. It's like when you show up in that moment as a freshman and you're the best guy on your team, like making the play of the game in the national championship. I mean, the dude was just different. He was just talented, very talented, not super speedy. I mean, he just got it done.
Yep.
And he never would be denied. It was just like something to watch, man.
He made the first guy miss every time and gave the offensive line time to get to where they needed. But even the Michigan game, he's the one that drew up and said, "Hey, let's run the wheel route because Michigan's not following me," and that led to the game-winning score eventually. Yeah. So smart guy, able to pick up pass protection, was the best blocker of the running backs. That's one of the reasons he played. I don't have a problem with him being number 3 because for a long time he was the best running back I ever saw at Ohio State, and obviously it's too bad we didn't get to see more of him. We're seeing more of him now, which is good, but just an incredible freshman season. And I've said before, if he was healthy that entire season, he wins the Heisman, and I still stand by that. Even though they sure didn't want to give it to a freshman back then, right. But he was so good, and the hype was so expansive, and he got so much attention that they may not have been able to deny him.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Bosas? Because I've got Nick ahead of Joey here, and
so I got Joey ahead of Nick.
Okay,
I got Joey at 6, and I got Nick at 7. You've got Nick at 5 and Joey at 6.
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, Joey Bosa started, I think, 10 games. Nick's numbers were just a little bit better, and he was splitting reps with more people. That's why I went with him ahead of Joey Bosa. But I still, one of my favorite memories is Joey Bosa as a freshman in 2013 at one of his first practices. I don't remember. I don't think he came in early. I don't think any of the Bosas did. I don't know if St. Thomas Aquinas even allowed it.
I don't believe so.
So it was Mike Vrabel was the defensive line coach at that point. And they were outside, and he was putting them through drills, and he's working them. He's yelling at Joey Bosa the entire time, saying, "This ain't St. Thomas Aquinas anymore," and just really, really running him. But he ended up starting, like I said, like 10 games that year, and that was also Adolphus Washington was a 5-star defensive end in 2012. We're talking 2013, Joey Bosa's freshman year. Adolphus Washington got hurt and said, well, when I came back, I knew if I wanted to play, I had to move to defensive tackle because Joey Bosa was on the team. And so just to cause that kind of understanding in a teammate as talented as Adolphus Washington, being like, that guy's really good, I'm going to have to move inside. So do you, let me guess, your number 5 is J.K. Dobbins?
Yeah. Number 5 is J.K. Yeah, number 5 is J.K., and that was kind of a shocker for me. Like, the senior year where he gets hurt, I thought he was a really good running back, and then that happened, and I don't know, I was wondering what we would see out of him as a freshman. Probably not a ton. And then, wow, I was just rereading this, but I think his yards per carry were just insane that year. 7.2.
Yeah.
7.2 yards a carry. That's insane, dude. That guy was so good, man. He was so good. And honestly, I think in our conversations, fan conversations, I do think he kind of gets glossed over a little bit when we talk about that. I mean, he's always there, but just how good he was, man, that guy was something.
The jump cuts.
Yeah.
I mean, he made dudes look ridiculous. Then he had the down 2018 where he was splitting carries with Mike Weber and trying to hit the home run every time. And then, of course, went for 2,000 yards in 2019. But he was very, very special. I remember talking to his high school coach that summer, and he was just like, you'll see. Like, I've got hand times and, high 4.3s, low 4.4s. He can play receiver. He's impossible to touch when, you're in the open field. And then you just started hearing buzz, and it wasn't, I think he still rushes for 1,000 yards, even if Mike Weber wasn't a little banged up in camp that year. I think you're still going to see J.K. Dobbins out there. And boy, he was fun to watch. And if he doesn't get hurt in 2019 against Clemson, I think that's a different outcome as well. And all of the many different outcomes that could have differently outcomed in that game, that's one of them. I had to throw Marcus Marek on here because I didn't watch him, but he had over 100 tackles as a true freshman, and that's, I think, an Ohio State record. Korey Stringer was a second-team All-Big Ten, started like 6 games, but was playing in every game.
Yep.
Ted Ginn, I have number 8 on this list because, again, another just incredible to watch. And the numbers that set him over the edge are the punt return numbers that I have, or that he had 4 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns.
He only caught 25 passes, 2 touchdown catches, 2 touchdown rushes, 4 touchdowns on punt returns.
That's wild.
Tied for the team lead in touchdowns. With Ted, just your thoughts on him. When did you know? Because I remember watching him in the Big 33 and I think the North-South, and you could tell that this, and the Army All-American game, where this was a guy that he better not play defense at Ohio State.
So yeah, that was like a big fear of mine. I wanted to see this guy with the ball in his hands as much as possible, but he does come in on the defensive side of the ball, and a very advantageous decision there to flip him around. But just maybe, there's a lot of unique guys we've seen at Ohio State. Of all the unique guys, this guy was maybe the most unique. I mean, the way he runs the ball, just the way it looks, it's just something I've never seen since. And, people talk about Jameer Brown, for instance. Jameer Brown's times. Jameer Brown's incredibly fast. Jameer Brown doesn't look like Ted Ginn when he runs. It's just totally different. When he gets into that trot and he gets this forward lean, you see the lean come down, and that's it. It's over. It's insane to watch. I don't think we'll ever see anything like it. It was just mesmerizing.
You can go back, and his highlights are incredible to watch. The times where he's returning a punt and everybody is even, and then he kicks it in, and you just see the separation that is not natural. And yeah, everybody knows the lean that you're talking about, where and it's gone. He's gone. Ludicrous speed is what he's gone and done. The Big 33 game, so that was Ohio versus Pennsylvania. I think he threw a touchdown in that game, caught like 4 or 5 passes for over 100 yards, including like an 86-yarder to start. And then Devin Lyons, who ended up going to Ohio State, had like 100 yards receiving in the first half. And then finally they put Ted Ginn on him. Ted Ginn was only playing offense in that game. And in the second half, he's like, yeah, I'll play some defense. Shut Devin Lyons down, gave up like 1 catch for like 3 yards, and was remarkable. And I think he had a kickoff return for a touchdown, maybe in the Army game.
Yeah.
Just always electric. And you're talking about all of the different kinds of people. I think if maybe at one point we'll do like the most dangerous Buckeyes,
Mm-hmm.
because he was dangerous from wherever. And the Michigan State game is a true freshman where he scored 3 touchdowns, one on an end around, one on a punt return, and then the game winner on a slant. It was just, you never knew what he was going to do, but you had to keep your eyes on him. And then he capped it with that Alamo Bowl and some craziness in that game. It was so fun to watch.
It was a great career to watch. And he lasted so long in the NFL, becoming more and more of a polished receiver every year, which is awesome. And now, of course, the head football coach for the Aviators. So there you go.
Is there anybody, like, what was your list, so that I got it? Was there anybody on this list that?
So let's see. After JK at 5, I had Joey at 6. I had Nick at 7. I had Cris Carter at 8, who I didn't get to see a whole lot of. But for me, Cris Carter is kind of a revolutionary wide receiver. Like the stuff that we see these guys do on the routine now he's kind of like the Godfather, right? He's like the acrobatic one-handed catch, the body control, and then I put a little bit of what he did into the NFL in with that legacy, because he was so great in the NFL as well. It just I can't separate the two, because the majority of my life I watched him playing in the NFL, right? That's the majority of what I knew of him. But I've got Travion at 9.
Okay.
I thought Travion's freshman season deserved to be on here with 19 total touchdowns, which is just bizarre. Also 6.8 yards a carry, which is some serious stuff. And then at 10, I've got Stringer as well, who was the Big Ten Freshman of the Year, starting 6 games. Again, starting a tackle as a freshman just blows my mind. I guess, was it more common back then, Tony, or was it?
Well, no,
never really see it anymore.
Because like I said, Orlando Pace was the first one to start the season opener on the offensive line for Ohio State. And I think with Orlando, the fact that they didn't move Korey Stringer to left tackle in Pace's freshman year, and they just said, no, Orlando, you're the left tackle. We'll keep this all Big Ten right tackle at right tackle and go from there. But
what a duo.
Yeah. It's incredible. And then also in short yardage and on field goals, they put them both on the defensive line. And now try dealing with that. That's just all kinds of mass. Travion Henderson in that Tulsa game as a true freshman was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Cris Carter. So I don't necessarily remember him as a freshman. I remember him at Ohio State because as kids, as a child, me and my friends, we would be Cris Carter as we're trying to toe the line or catch something while diving, because we knew even then, before he was ever in the NFL, he had the best hands we ever saw, and it was just known. It was a thing. I was like 9 years old. It's like, yes, everybody knows this. Like George Washington's the first president. Cris Carter has the best hands in football history. What else you got? That's all I need to know. I'm fine.
Yeah.
We'll eventually do a show on wide receivers, and you look at all the numbers that are going on, and he's still going to have to be on that Mount Rushmore.
Absolutely. I don't know that he's ever coming off of that, no matter. Well, who knows? I don't know. Maybe you get a couple more JJs. I don't know. I guess I can't say that.
Well, and the thing is here now, like Marv would be up there, and again, this is a new show that we're not doing yet, but Marv would be up there, but he's got to get the NFL thing going, or else it's going to diminish what he did at Ohio State, which is crazy because it shouldn't, because he was awesome.
It shouldn't, but it just does in our perception. It just does. But I just, coming out into the NFL, I didn't care who the quarterback was. I was positive that was going to be a successful NFL player. I don't know that I've ever been more shocked than seeing him drop balls and get this case of the drops that he's had in the league. Which I think he's somewhat gotten straightened out, but seeing him defeated in interviews because the drop balls was what's going on here? One of the more shocking ones But I still think he'll turn it around. He's
So do
just
I.
too doggone good.
Well, I'm sure they'll have better quarterback play this year with Kyler Murray in Minnesota, and I'm sure Minnesota will have better quarterback play with Kyler Murray. Last quick thing on Ted Ginn. In that Big 33 game, one of the Pennsylvania corners was Darrelle Revis, and
Yeah,
Ted Ginn finished with 5 catches for 142 yards, and of course, I think like a 36-yard touchdown pass on a double pass end around type thing.
that's amazing, man. I heard they still play the Big 33 against Maryland now.
Yeah.
What a
So,
bummer is that?
well, I think Pennsylvania got tired of losing, and so they said, well, "What's Maryland up to?" And so they texted Maryland, "You up?" And
Yeah.
Maryland was like, "Sure, yeah, sure, we'll come over." So let's move to the present and talk about the freshman impacts that Ohio State could have this year. Because I want to point out, if you go back, whenever Ohio State has won a national championship, since true freshmen have been eligible, there have been at least one true freshman that makes a sizable impact on that championship season. 2002, you've got Maurice Clarett, you've got AJ Hawk in the two deep. 2014, Curtis Samuel is the backup running back, rushing for almost 400 yards. You've got Raekwon McMillan splitting time with Curtis Grant. He finishes with almost 60 tackles. 2024, obviously, Jeremiah Smith. That's about the extent of it for 2024. But if we're talking about Ohio State having a possibility as a national champion this year, history says that there has to be a true freshman who contributes a lot, whether as a starter or as a two deep guy. I don't know that any freshman is starting this year. Maybe Chris Henry could win a job. But when you look at the biggest impact that kind of maybe helps a national championship, where do you start?
Well, I would probably start with Chris Henry as well, but part of me leans towards Legend as well, just based on, we kind of figure he's already getting penciled in for 5 touches minimum a game. There's no guarantee that's happening with Chris.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of feel like that's already in the plans for Legend. And if things go well, that grows. And I am kind of a firm believer that things are going to go well with that. Should they find a way to utilize him right? And, we're seeing the mask get packed on, which means he's going to be a little more durable, which means they're going to be less skittish about where they give him the ball. And I think adding a little bit of extra power isn't going to hurt his game at all. And he already is powerful. He's in a very powerful lower half. It's not like he's some kid that you just pop around and he drops on first contact. It's not just a speed jitterbug like that that goes down easy as well. So Chris Henry, Legend, probably the two on offense that I could see potential would be the most likely to make that kind of impact.
I think the interesting thing with Legend is you're right. He's not a guy that, well, we need to get him in space. And it's like, oh, here we go. And try to,
many times, yeah.
throw it out and throw a swing pass out, and it's a 3-yard loss on a tackle because the blocking isn't there. The thing that Carlos Loughlin has said about Legend Bey is he's run between the tackles his entire life. When you watch him play, this isn't somebody that only runs sweeps or is just scrambling. He will run between the tackles and he will duck his head and he will keep his eyes up, or what, like he's not afraid of the contact. So this isn't like, Dontre Wilson in 2013, where Urban's like, well, we can't run him between the tackles until he's 200 pounds. And he never quite made it to 200 pounds, or he could never run between the tackles because that's a rule. Legend Bey is currently listed at 177 pounds. He ain't 177
Hell no,
pounds.
Tone. He's about 195.
He is not 177 pounds. We'll see what they list him at on that first fall camp roster. But he looks like he can run the ball anywhere you want. I'm not saying they're going to, put him in there with 4 tight ends on 3rd and short. Loughlin laughed at the idea, saying, I'm not doing that. We've got other guys for that. You got 3 guys that are 220 pounds for that. You don't need Legend Bey to do that. But he's not just a gimmick guy that you can only use in one area. They can use him all over the place. And I think for me, He's probably the guy that I'm saying is the biggest impact just because it can come from so many different places, including special teams.
Including special teams. Yeah. I think if I had to bet between him and Cris and Brock, just, offensively, don't want to like say that. And I do think Brock will get a lot of receptions. I just don't know if it'll be the wow.
Mhm.
But I could see potentially back half of the year, Chris Henry is coming on, and then eventually somebody's sitting the bench a lot of the game, and Chris is in there. And if that's the case, then I'd probably go with Henry.
Mm-hmm.
But this feels like such a toss up between the two of these guys. But it's one of these two is where I'd put my money if I was betting on one.
It's interesting because 30 years ago, you had David Boston and Michael Wiley.
Oh my gosh, dude.
And David Boston, he played as a true freshman, but then the second half of the season, he was starting ahead of Buster Tillman. He took the job, finished with like 33 catches, and was, of course, in that Rose Bowl. Michael Wiley playing running back at that point, or actually playing wide receiver and then kind of switching to running back after that. Very dynamic player. I guess you'd take David Boston as the most impactful freshman on offense that year. Defensively, it was Andy Katzenmoyer, but man, what a freshman class. Anyway, that's another show. But yeah, I think Chris Henry, watching him get better and more productive as the spring went on, you can absolutely see him doing the same thing as the season goes on. I think that's fair. And I think, like you said, Brock Boyd, I think he's just going to be consistent, and it may be 25 catches. It may be 12. I don't know what it's going to be in there. I think we'll see him out there. It's just a matter of where is he in the progression, because I don't know how often he'll be that early, unless, when you consider all of the veterans that are going to be out there as well. Defensively, because I don't think anybody's going to – I'm not putting Sam Greer on this list or anybody on the offensive line or any of the tight ends. Defensively, I think there's a world where Jay Timmons gets involved because of various dings or injuries in the secondary. We know that Terry Moore has dealt with injuries. We know that, sometimes corners, there's always somebody randomly starting at corner, except for last year, basically. But, all right, no, Devin Sanchez, I think, started twice last year at corner. So just because of injuries. I could see Jay Timmons getting involved somewhere, whether it's they lose one of their safeties and somebody new has to come in. Maybe that's Leroy Roker. But defensively, I'm thinking Jay Timmons or Khari Wilder. Like, what do you think?
I've got 5 on my list. And going back to last year's freshman class, looking at snap count, obviously you had Bo with 350 some. Then you had Isaiah West with 108. Zion Grady with 104, Fahim Delane with 81, Riley Pettijohn with 77, Jarquez Carter with 51. And looking at next year's, I think the guys that kind of slot in, and I've got 5 guys that I think are the most likely to reach that 100 snap mark as a freshman. And on offense, it's Legend, Chris Henry, and Brock Boyd. On defense, it's Jay Timmons and Khari Wilder. And so I'm right there with you with Jay, who I think, injury or not, I think he's almost a lock to reach that 100 snap mark. I think that is just what's going to happen with Jay. And I can't wait to see it too, because he is just, boy. And, in the era of what they're looking for out of secondary players, I saw him in person for the first time at camp. And I am just like, I cannot believe how small he is compared to the legend that's growing around him in the film and in the way he hits. It's the dude's got something, man. He has got something, and I think he's going to play early. And then I've also got Khari Wilder, who, if this were a different season and you didn't have all of these different options that were older vets, I would say this guy is going to play a ton and be effective. But because there are so many options, they'll probably run through all of them first. if one or two of them that we're not or maybe some are I don't know, let's say Bo Atkinson hits and he's improved, and then all of a sudden now he's not going to get as much opportunity as maybe he might otherwise. But if he does get the opportunity, I think he could potentially take it and really be a big chunk of that rotation, because there's not a single one of these guys in this class that I believe in more as a future first rounder than Khari Wilder.
It would be interesting to see if he had been there last year and what he would have done with Zion Grady snaps.
That's right. Right. Exactly. You know? Yeah. When I look at him and Zion Grady, Zion was really effective. Different stratosphere of athlete and power. Like Khari is just is a notch above. As savvy as Zion is, and he is, but not to take anything away from him. But if Khari would have had those opportunities, like you said, like I think it would have been, even to the next level.
Yeah, and now there's just more people in front of him, including Epi Satanale, who I think is going to play quite a bit.
And deserve, it looks like he deserves it too. Yeah.
I think you could also throw Blaine Bradford as somebody who will have a shot. I think he'll be in the 2 deep. That's not unusual for safeties to be in the 2 deep, to be the backup to a veteran starter. But overall, like the rest of those guys, I think there's some developmental guys, but also just there's so many guys in front of them that it's very difficult. So I think, is there anybody that we haven't touched on? Because I think we pretty much have, in terms of whom I am expecting to be that kind of contributor.
Yeah, that would have been it for me. Is Blaine on there as well? Would have been probably next up for me. But that's about it for this class. And then I was rolling into 2027, which, currently includes 4 5-stars in the class, rated a 5-star at one of the 3 major services, 7 top 100 players, but a lot of them are linemen. You know what I mean? So how many do you end up with that are actually going to get playing them? 2 of them are offensive linemen in Kellen Weimer and Caden Moss, and I don't ever expect linemen to get that kind of run. If Sam Greer's not going to get it, they're not going to get it either. But then when we look at the defensive linemen, that might be a little different when we're talking about DJ Jacobs at 1-1. This guy's built to play right now, and he's going to go play a senior season. Obviously, Marcus Fakatuo and Wyatt Smith, like these guys all could potentially come in and contribute in a big way, depending on which one of them pops. Like it's quite an exciting pair on that defensive line.
And you would assume that, well, Kenyatta Jackson will be gone. Bo Atkinson, I think, now could come back. I think, is he a true senior this year?
I thought I saw that this is it for him.
He may have redshirted as a true freshman. So you would assume he would be gone. So there's going to be some room on there to make an impact on the defensive line and be impactful as a pass rusher, which Larry Johnson is okay putting those young guys in positions to where they don't have to do too much thinking, and then you'll build into that ability to do something. So I wouldn't, I'm going to be fascinated to see what Wyatt Smith looks like when he is like at this point in his freshman, like heading into his freshman season, because we know there's still, he can still add weight, and he's going to. And so he's going to show up, and well, I guess maybe won't show up early because he's the St. Thomas Aquinas. But is going to be, I'll get here in June, I would assume then, and hit the weights right away. But also I'm going to assume he's also going to be like not staying away from them beforehand. So he's Ohio State will give him a plan, and he's just got such a good frame. And you can say the same thing about DJ Jacobs as well. And Marcus Fakatuo, who's like 6'6", 280, and looks like, he's kind of skinny. He can put some weight on. There's just some really interesting frames on those guys that you wonder, like, how quickly will they be able to play at their new weight and things like that. But any of those 3 could be like, I think that guy's going to play.
Tony, when you look at those 3 and Khari Wilder, the 3 interior guys in 2026 of Jameer Perez, Damari Simeon, and Emmanuel Ruffin, potentially Carlos May on the 18th. You're looking at 8 guys that is maybe the most exciting 8-man crew in 2 years on the defensive line we've ever seen. I mean, there's so many guys here that, yeah, I could see that guy popping and being a first rounder at some point. I mean, I cannot wait to see these guys' careers, pan out, because it's just amazing. And we're talking about some top tier, ridiculous talent. I think Wyatt Smith is going to have a season as a senior even better and finish a 5-star. It's top 100 now. I think they're coming in 3 5-star edges. I think that's what's about to happen here. It's going to be insane.
And not to look too far into the future, but in 2028, Aiden Havili, the defensive tackle out of Washington, was, I think, had the best overall performance of anybody I saw at camp last month. He was quick and strong and listed at like 6'2". He said he's 320 and wants to arrive at 300 so that he can put the other 20 back on correctly, like wherever he ends up.
He the one from Sammamish?
Yeah, he is. Okay. Eastside Catholic, just like JT Tuimoloau and G. Scott. Just really, man, he was doing their one-on-ones. There would be times that nobody could touch him. Like literally did not get a hand on him. And you're not supposed to move like that. And he did. And when talking to him afterwards, he's like, yeah, I like to use my speed and my quickness. And, I can use my power, but I'd rather just get away scot-free, basically. And he did it. But that's a little further out to the future. Jameer Brown, I think I want to see more this year. And I want to see what he looks like in terms of just a more refined receiver rather than a track athlete playing football. And I plan on seeing him several times this year. I won't be living too far away from his games, and see how that maybe can translate to next year. At this point, I think they've done Cortez Hankton has done a good enough job with the recruiting, and you don't necessarily know that Brandon Innes and Kyle Parker are leaving next year. So I don't know that he can have too much of an impact next year, even though that speed, you got to figure out if you can use it. Like, can he help us? That's what the coach has got to be asking next year.
So I'm with you in your train of thought and he has gotten better, certainly as a wide receiver, but he's got a ways to go. He's not coming in like Chris Henry or Brock Boyd or Jaquaden Guilford. I don't think he's coming in quite as refined as any of those guys. And maybe he's like a year behind in development. We'll put it that way. Probably a year behind in wide receiver development. But if you can find ways to get him the ball, in different ways, potentially utilize him like that. But you also kind of have Legend for that. So how much, I'm not seeing him at this point playing a ton as a freshman. Of course, his senior year could change your mind, for sure. But at this point, it just feels like he's a lot of camps this summer, a lot of camps where he was the top wide receiver going into the camp. And then you'd read notes coming out and there's nothing about Jameer. And it's just like, what's going on here? So a little bit disappointing on that end, but certainly not a guy I would be concerned about at all. I think he hits that 5-star ceiling for sure. It's just going to take a little bit.
Watching the 7-on-7 stuff, I think one of the reasons we didn't hear much about him is because his quarterbacks weren't throwing him the ball. That was an issue on one of the days I was watching. So there are still, what about a name, Jack, of somebody who's not committed at this point that could commit, say, I don't know, in like 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks? What kind of impact do you think David Gabriel-Georges could have on this team in 2027?
I think his impact could be just enormous. I think he could eventually start taking at least half the carries, right? I mean, let's say, for instance, you've got Bo and Isaiah in year 3. And I'm of the opinion that we're going to see Isaiah take on a little more of that workload this year. So they kind of walk in as your presumed 2-pack in 2027 with the freshman David Gabriel-Georges. And he comes in, and he is the guy that everybody thinks he is. he's going to start working his way in more and more and getting more and more carries. And by the end of the year, maybe he's part of that 2-pack, or maybe he becomes the lead man. If you feel, and obviously they do, that he is that transcendent of a guy, they would not have done everything they've done to try to get him in. Like, they believe that he is that transcendent of a guy who can walk in and say to your really good backs, I'm a little on a different level here, and be that quickly. He's already as big as them. He's already faster than them. He's got everything you need. Like, there's no, and it's running back, like, yeah, I think he could be super impactful in year one. But I also personally have a lot of faith in those two. But neither of them have that game break ability that DGG brings.
He's just got, some of his highlights are like, this looks fake. Is this AI? He's fighting. It's like he's in a street fight and he's fighting off a bunch of people trying to take the football from him. And then he runs and he's like, bursts out of an alley after winning a fight over 6 dudes, and then, goes and scores a touchdown. And there's like, the local bodega is on fire and he puts out a fire, and he's just doing all of these different things. And the refs are just letting it all go. And like, this guy's got a knife, but it doesn't matter, because what's a knife going to do to DGG? So
yeah,
he's got something special. The idea that he would come in and be a contributor, I think, is, yes, that's why we're talking about him. They don't need him to be 1,000 yards. They don't need him to be 800 yards, because I think it's going to be hard to not keep giving the ball to Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. And frankly, when we talk about Legend Bey, like, Legend Bey is his own thing. There's always going to be a carve out for him. So we're not dismissing him at all. There's just, like, he's got his own thing. It's almost like he's his own position. He's the legend position. Don't worry about him, losing carries or whatever. But with what I'm expecting to see from both Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, you'd look at them this year and be like, you'd be crazy to, like, take a bunch of carries away from them. But the thing is, if they do sign David GabrielGeorges, and he will play, and then it's just up to him to keep playing. This isn't anything that Carlos Loughlin's going to give to anybody. We talk about Legend Bey. Legend Bey isn't going to be given anything. He's going to earn it. He's going to take it, and then they'll just continue to give him the ball. Bo Jackson, he earned that job last year after he didn't play against Texas in the season opener, and then continued to get better and better, and they could trust him. Isaiah West didn't play early, then started to play, finished with over 300 yards rushing. Like, the more that you show, the more that you'll get the ball, and that just makes everybody that much. Like, the idea that David Gabriel-Georges, if you're Bo Jackson and Isaiah West and you see him come in, you think you're just going to stand by and, like, not work on your game, or you're going to be, like, taking this in stride? They're going to be fighting like hell to make sure that they keep the ball, but also they're fine sharing as well, because they know that this is a long, long season.
Absolutely. And when it comes to running back, I almost assume you're going to have at least one injury. Like, it's almost like the assumption anymore, particularly if you got to go 16, 17 games to win a national championship. So then you're assuming, all right, well, now he's in the 2 deep in the running back room, because, like, I don't care if Turbo ends up sticking around or not. He's not holding him back. That's not happening. Favor's not holding him back. Like, I mean, he's walking in as 5'11", 220, squatting 600 pounds, benching 400 pounds. It's just, it's something special. It's coming down to it, Tone. Obviously, this is actually my show tomorrow is about what we just saw. The experts did a big poll, 9 deep, and they were picking Ohio State or Tennessee, and 6 of the 9 chose Ohio State. And it just feels like such a coin flip at this point, until what happens in that very last 24 hours, right? What we don't know. We don't know if Tennessee's holding off on, we're waiting to push this in at the very last minute, something that'll really change the whole tenor of it. And we just don't know, man. We just don't know. I can't wait for it to be over with, though. The unfortunate thing is when we look at this freshman class, this Ohio State class of 27 that they put together, with the single best collection of offensive and defensive linemen that we've seen in the modern recruiting era, I think so many are looking at it through the prism of whether or not they win for DGG as a pass-fail basis. If they don't get them, it's a fail. Not just for DGG, which I agree that would be a fail, but for the class. And I think the class, because of where they're adding, because of how much they needed that, this infusion of talent in the trenches to play this style of football Ryan Day wants to play, because of that, it's an absolute winner. It's a total winner. And DGG to me is all upside. It's not like you're losing out a ton. I still like the running back room without him. If you get him, it's a huge upside. But I think a lot of people are going to really crap on it, which is going to suck. But they've really set it up to look like this because they have gone so hard, so all in, and ignored every other option along the way.
Yeah, and they've said no thanks to other options. They've had to say, go enjoy your life
Florida
somewhere
State.
else. Yeah, that sort of thing. And yet, if you could have one or the other, a huge offensive line or a huge line of scrimmage haul, or a top 2 running back, you're crazy to go with the skill player. I mean, I've seen a ton of blowback or just criticism on social media, or just the idea of Ohio State always signing these talented wide receivers and ignoring the trenches. And now, so if they go and focus on the trenches, but don't land a running back that they don't necessarily need, then somehow they've failed this recruiting class. But as we all know, it's once they're in, they're forgotten about. And you've moved on to the next thing, the next pass fail. And if you fail that, then you've failed everything. So, we've talked about it in the previous show. I don't think David Gabriel-Georges is a must get. I think he's a sure thing. And those are two very different things.
Yeah, totally agree. Sure thing. A guy who can, potentially be that difference maker like JJ was. But if you didn't get JJ, you had Emeka Egbuka, you had Carnell Tate. You were good. You were good at the position. You just got a whole lot better when you brought him in.
They don't win a national championship, though, without Jeremiah.
Well, that's my contention for you. Absolutely push your chips in when you get an opportunity to get a guy that you believe is that caliber of kid. Absolutely. So I totally agree with what they've done. You just have to win. That's it. We both agree there. You have to win.
And as we've said before, at some point, you've got to show the rest of the world, the college football world, that you're not just going to let somebody come in at the end and outbid you by a couple $100,000. And if the final asking price is $1 million a year, and this is not my money, but the idea of Ohio State walking away from a sure thing that they're comfortable with, because of say $150,000, when the kind of money that we're talking about over the course of a year, or what a national championship could bring, or what Jeremiah Smith brought, he's making more than $1 million. Was that a bad investment? No. So there's some things that they have to weigh. Where's he more likely to win a national championship, Ohio State or Tennessee? We could argue for days about that one. In terms of the 9 experts, it was a little disappointing that they didn't get an Ole Miss expert in there to say Ole Miss, just to have a third hat on the table.
Well, they did get Pete Nakos in there, Tony, to say he doesn't know anything about it, but he's picking Tennessee because they have the bigger offer, and usually guys go with the bigger offer. Thank you for your insight there, Peter.
Is he wrong?
No, he's not wrong.
So, yeah, boy, it's going to be one. I think all of the Ohio State YouTube internet will be live online that day, watching that and reacting. And it's been, boy, when was the last one like this? Because the Jeremiah Smith thing was signing day, so you couldn't really watch long. You're just waiting to hear.
David Sanders for 2 years was my record live show. That one was enormous. Like, everybody was tuned in on that. And that was the last one that was that big. That one was just all eyes on that, like all Tennessee, all Ohio State, and surprising, right? Like we're talking about, I think we've had some relatively big ones since then where we knew they were announcing ahead of time and didn't really know. What we just recently had one pretty doggone big. But none like that. This one will trump it for sure.
I think this will be the first, like if Terrell Pryor was post YouTube.
There we go. Right. Yeah. YouTube era Terrell Pryor.
Yeah. I think that'll be, and that would have, you would have had Ohio State, Michigan, West Virginia fans all in on that. This one, I don't know that Ole Miss is really, although maybe they're just waiting to see what the number is.
They've been known to pull some stuff.
So there you go. Freshman seasons, we're talking about it, as you guys saw. If you've got some thoughts on your all-time favorites, your favorite freshman seasons, most dominating freshman seasons, who you think is going to explode this year, what you think may happen next year, go ahead and let us know. And if you're listening and want to watch on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/@BuckeyeInsiders. And at this point, BuckeyeInsiders.com, days away, and not a lot of days, a couple of days away, a few days away from launching and going live. If you go there right now, BuckeyeInsiders.com right now, put your email address in. We will send you an update when we're live, or you can just constantly click refresh and be surprised when it happens. So that will do here from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.